Ladies, gentlemen, and hurrah of all ages, a lot of people have started to nicely settle down into the endgame for Season 7, and a big important part of doing that and getting into the build of your dreams is often Mythic Uniques. Nearly every top build has at least one Mythic Unique within them, and that's because on current balance there are at least a handful of these that are just extremely strong, to the point where ones like the Shroud of False Death, the chess piece, are used in pretty much any build that doesn't have a build-enabling chess piece unique in it to begin with, and same goes for either the Harlequin Crest, the Heir perdition, or even in some cases Andariel's Visage, where between that trio, most builds will ideally use one of them unless they have a build-enabling helmet unique already, like Tempest Roar for Druids as an example. Then a lot of builds will try and stuff in things like the Ring of Starless Skies in there too, if it makes sense, just because the effect itself and the stats are just generically strong. All of that to say, Mythic Uniques are powerful, especially right now, and every season something shifts and changes around them. So it's time for the Season 7 updated guide on how best to farm Mythic Uniques, as well as crafting Mythic Uniques as well. Starting off then with the farming, the classic method and the one that you're likely to spend most of your actual Mythic Unique farming time doing is Lair Bosses, the ones that you use summoning materials to bring into the world in Torment difficulty within their lairs. The higher the difficulty tier that you are on, the higher the Mythic Unique drop rate is, so you want to do it on Torment 4 if at all possible, and that is an important thing to consider to begin with. Then there's also the fact that while all Lair Bosses do have enhanced chances of dropping Mythic Uniques compared to, the game at large, there are two specific particular bosses among them that have even higher chances than the rest at dropping these beautiful purple items. Those two being Duriel as well as Andariel, the ones at the top rung of the boss ladder, and between the two of them, Duriel is much faster to run on repeat, especially once you reach a power level where you can basically one-shot them, because Andariel has forced intermissions, especially if your damage is slow in the slightest, so between the two, Duriel is just much more efficient to run on repeat, and thus the most efficient boss of all to run back to back for Mythic Unique drop chances. To summon him, you need Mucus Slick Eggs, and you also need Shards of Agony. These come either from things like boss summon caches, such as the Reputation track for Coven's Favor, or the eggs from defeating Varshan, specifically in the Shards of Agony from defeating Riguar, two of the easier Lair bosses. To summon Varshan, you need to collect Malignant Hearts, which are dropping like candy this season, thanks to their main source being from Whispers of the Dead caches, which people are essentially just getting as a byproduct of the seasonal headhunt activity. And then for Riguar, you need Living Steel, which drops in its largest quantities from Helltide itself specifically. However, both of these boss materials have random drop chances from any elite enemy in general in the game, which does make headhunts even better for this than it would be otherwise. And Loot Goblins also spawn a fair bit in Headhunt 2, which do drop random boss material summons as well. The other main way and the most efficient one generally is going to be the Tribute of Titans. This is a tribute for the kurask undercity activity added in with Vessel of Hatred as an expansion, and this gives you a pile of boss materials at the end of it, which drops for all players if you do it in a group. The main place this tribute drops from is actually the Lair bosses themselves too, which are also most efficiently done in a group, as one set of materials summons the boss for 4 players to all get loot from, and you end up with a fairly efficient and clear way for a group of players to just go back and forth and loop between doing the bosses themselves, then doing tributes for more materials, and then right back in for more bosses over and over. And you can find groups like this by looking for boss rotations in the party finder in-game, which was added last season too. That said, as of this point in the season, it's looking like this is no longer the technically most efficient way to get Mythic Uniques to drop, and that's actually the Mythic Unique dropping tribute for Kurask Undercity. This existed last season, and it was decent, but players are reporting much higher drop rates from it in Season 7, with some players claiming as high as a 50% success rate for them. Personally, I've done 3 of these with no luck, but Josh has done 1 and did actually get his Mythic Unique. And obviously that's just sort of a conjecture, it's a super small sample size, but from what I've heard from other players, this is seemingly just way better than it was last season, and so I absolutely do recommend doing any of these that you find. As for how to find them, they mostly come from Whispers of the Dead caches, with the last one that I got coming from a cache of Greater Dungeon keys, so watch out for those especially. Outside of that, one thing that I want to very briefly touch on is the Murmuring Obol vendor. Last season, this had a very high rate of producing uniques, and so it wasn't actually that bad at turning Murmuring Obols into Mythic Uniques as a result of that too. But in Season 7 specifically, the drops from this vendor were nerfed a ton, so it just sort of a notice that this is no longer something to really even consider for Mythic Uniques anymore as of this point. That said, Mythic Uniques do also just have the chance to drop in any situation a regular unique can drop to, just extremely low chances that you're unlikely to ever actually see as an individual. Outside of that then, there's also crafting for Mythic Uniques, and this is actually in a pretty bad situation this season. The main thing that you need for crafting Mythic Uniques are Resplendant Sparks, and the 2 ways of getting these is either through salvaging a Mythic Unique that you definitely have no intentions of actually using yourself. Obviously never salvage something you want to use, but if you're not going to use it, kill it, turn it into a spark, and then you can turn it into an actual piece of gear later on. The other way is getting one of the guaranteed Resplendant Sparks, which come either from the Final Chapters Season Journey cache, one of the Coven's Favor, Reputation, Final Rewards as well, and also one from your first Echo of Lilith kill for the season, which is a total of 3 guaranteed sparks. The 2 ways to turn these into Mythic Uniques are either through randomness, with the Blacksmith, who does have a function under the Forge Equipment tab where he can make you Mythic Uniques for the cost of 2 Resplendent Sparks and 50 million gold. It turns it into a completely random mythic, or the alternative is the specific targeted Mythic Unique crafting, which you can do through the jeweler, which I will again continue to bring up. Bothers me that you can only do this specific mythic crafting now if you have bought the expansion, as this was a feature that was fully available beforehand, before the expansion even came out, and they changed it to be something that required these runes after the expansion happened. But that gripe aside, you need 2 Resplendent Sparks and only 5,000 gold, but then you need 6 of a legendary rune, 6 of a specific rare rune, and then 6 of a specific magic type rune as well, with these specific runes depending on which mythic you are trying to craft, which you can check at the jeweler very easily in the rune crafting section. Last season, this was reasonably manageable to do, but still awkward because natural drop rates on runes aren't really high enough to get lucky enough to get 6 of each of the ones you need in a short amount of time, but players trading between each other, either rune for rune or runes for gold as well, allowed a lot of people to get specific mythics they were after last season, which was great. This season, however, across the board, people are finding the legendary rune drop rates to be significantly reduced, way down from what they were before. And the main result of this, other than obviously runes being less plentiful for the people who want to use them for their original purpose, which is being socketed to gear, but the longer term effect is that specific Mythic Unique crafting like this is way more difficult to do this season. You're extremely unlikely to get the runes that you need without trading this season, I would say, in general. And even through trading, because the runes are less plentiful, they are also way more expensive to trade for with gold than they were last season too. So currently, depending on which mythic you're after, you can find yourself shelling out over 1 billion gold if you want to get 6 of the same legendary rune for this craft. So it's just in a far worse place this season than it was before. And while I don't think this was an intended effect of reducing rune drop rates, I don't think that the developers are blind to it happening now either. So if we're lucky, this will be taken into consideration in the future, either for something that will change in the middle of the season, or maybe even for something next season or in the future after that too. That said, for most people, I'd say you're going to have an easier time getting the Mythic Uniques that you're after by just farming random drops from things like the bosses or from the Undercity Tribute, rather than doing the specific target craft like this, unless you're willing to get down and dirty in the trade market selling items so you can actually afford the runes that you're going to need for the craft. That just about does it for today then, everyone, your guide to farming Mythic Uniques in Season 7 for Diablo 4, in the hopes of helping you reach your ideal build setup with as few hurdles and speed bumps as possible. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage. Goodbye.